I need you to tell me the whole truth.
We can't keep living like this, Mom.
This is the only way to save us.
It began on an ordinary Sunday in October, 6 months earlier, when my husband's grandmother pressed a worn leather recipe book into my hands and said, "You're the keeper now." I should have recognized the weight of that moment, but I was too busy feeling grateful. We had been married 2 years by then. 2 years of learning how David took his coffee, black, no sugar, which still surprised me for a man so sweet, and how he always checked the locks twice before bed. 2 years of building our own small rituals, pancakes on Saturday mornings, jazz on rainy Sundays, the comfortable silence of two people who had chosen each other and were still relieved by that choice. But marriage, I was learning, wasn't just the joining of two people. It was the joining of two gravitational fields. And David's family pulled hard. His parents, Robert and Margaret, lived in the same brick house where David had grown up, 20 minutes from our apartment. Same stained glass window in the front hall. Same oak table where Margaret had fed 3 children and countless grandchildren. Same Sunday dinner at 5 o'clock, a tradition so sacred that David had once left a work conference early to make it. "You're sure I shouldn't bring anything?" I asked, standing in our kitchen, watching David knot his tie. "Just yourself," he said, smiling. "Mom likes to handle everything." She likes to handle everything, I repeated, trying to make it sound like a joke. He kissed my forehead. "She's proud. Let her be proud." I let her be proud. I let her be proud every Sunday for the first year of our marriage, then every other Sunday, as my own work schedule demanded more. I let her set the table, choose the wine, decide where everyone sat. I let her because it made her happy, and because David's face relaxed when his mother was happy, and because I loved him enough to want his peace. That October Sunday, the house smelled of rosemary and roasting chicken. Margaret greeted us at the door with her usual efficiency, hug for David, brisk nod for me, immediate pivot back toward the kitchen. "David, your father needs help with the stuck window in the dining room. Elena, you can hang your coat on the rack. Don't use the good bathroom. I'm cleaning it later." "There's a good bathroom and a bad one?" I whispered to David. He squeezed my hand. "There are 12 bathrooms, technically. Mom ranks them." Robert emerged from the hallway, tall and slightly stooped, wearing the same brown cardigan he seemed to have owned since the 90s. "David, good. Windows jammed again." The two of them disappeared. I stood in the foyer, listening to the sounds of Margaret's kitchen orchestra. Pots, running water, the sharp chop of a knife. I was about to offer help when a small figure appeared at the top of the stairs. Nana Clara was 93, though she insisted she was 93 and holding. She moved slowly, but with a precision that suggested every step was a choice. She wore a lavender dress and pearl earrings that had probably been a gift from her late husband 50 years ago. "Elena," she said, descending one step at a time. "You came." "Always," I said. "Always," she repeated, as if testing the word. "That's a heavy promise. Come, sit with me in the sitting room. Margaret won't need you yet." She never needs anyone until she does, and then she needs them completely. I followed her into the small front room that Margaret called the parlor, but Nana Clara still called the sitting room. It was crowded with furniture no one used. Velvet chairs, a mahogany cabinet, doilies on every surface. Nana Clara lowered herself into a wingback chair and patted the ottoman beside her. "How is your mother?" she asked. "Good. She's started a garden. Tomatoes mostly. She says they taste like sunlight." Your mother understands something Margaret has forgotten. "What's that?" "That things grow better when you don't watch them every second." Before I could answer, she reached into the side pocket of her chair and pulled out a book. It was small, maybe 6 by 8 inches, bound in cracked brown leather. The pages were yellowed, some stained with what looked like decades of olive oil and tomato sauce. "My mother's recipe book," Nana Clara said. "Then mine, now yours." "I can't. This is too precious." It's precious because it's used, not because it's preserved. Recipes are alive. They change. They adapt. She pressed it into my hands. Margaret has her own copy. She follows it exactly. I want you to have the original. Make it yours. Add to it. That's what it's for. Margaret might not like that. Margaret, Nana Clara said, with a smile that held no malice, has strong feelings about many things, but this book is mine to give. And I give it to you because you understand that love is not a recipe to be followed exactly. It's ingredients you trust and a fire you tend carefully. I held the book against my chest. Thank you. Don't thank me yet, she said softly. You'll need it more than you know. Dinner that night was warm. Margaret directed traffic with the precision of an air traffic controller. David, sit here, by your father. Robert, not there. You'll block the hutch. Elena, you can have the corner. It's smallest, but you don't take up much room anyway. I am fairly compact, I said. David pulled out my chair. Margaret watched this with a slight tightening of her mouth. How's the accounting firm? Robert asked David, pouring wine. Busy. Tax season's coming. You'll work late? Probably some nights. Don't work too late, Margaret said. You need real food, not takeout. Elena cooks, David said. When she has time, Margaret noted. She works too, of course. Modern times. I enjoy my job, I said. I'm a reference librarian. It's quiet. I like quiet. Libraries, Nana Clara said, from the far end of the table. Full of stories people forget they need. Mother, don't start your philosophy, Margaret said, but gently. David, more potatoes? Please. Elena, you barely touched yours. They're delicious. I'm just pacing myself. Pacing? Margaret repeated. Yes, well, there's plenty if you change your mind. The conversation moved in familiar currents. David's work, Robert's golf game, Margaret's church committee, the neighbor's new fence. I contributed when I could, but I had learned not to force my way into spaces that weren't offered. I watched David instead, the way his shoulders dropped as he sat in this chair, the way he laughed louder here than he did at home, the way he was, in this house, both more boy and more man than I usually saw. Elena, Nana Clara said suddenly, what will you cook first? From the book? From the book. I don't know yet, something challenging. Start with the Sunday gravy, Margaret said. It's simple, hard to ruin. Thank you, I said. I'd love your guidance sometime. Margaret's fork paused halfway to her mouth. Yes, perhaps. As we left, Margaret hugged David long and hard. She hugged me with one arm, her cheek barely touching mine. Drive safe, she said to David. To me, she said nothing. In the car, David reached for my hand. Good night? Lovely, I said, and I meant it. The recipe book sat on my lap. I opened it to a random page. Sunday gravy. The handwriting was faded but elegant. In the margin, someone had written in pencil, add extra basil if he's sad. I wondered who he was. I wondered what sadness had prompted the note. I closed the book and watched the streetlights blur past, feeling, for the first time, the faint tremor of something I couldn't name. The crack didn't arrive as shouting, it arrived as silence. 3 weeks after Nana Clara gave me the recipe book, I decided to make the Sunday gravy. David had mentioned offhand that he missed his mother's version, the long-simmered sauce with pork neck bones and San Marzano tomatoes that filled the house with a smell he called the scent of Sunday. I wanted to give him that, not to replace Margaret, just to give my husband something that made him feel at home, in our home. I spent Saturday sourcing ingredients, a butcher shop in the Italian market for the neck bones, a specialty grocer for the tomatoes. I followed Nana Clara's handwritten instructions exactly, even down to the pinch of sugar she said cut the acid without cheating. The gravy simmered for 6 hours. Our apartment smelled like a promise. David came home from a Saturday meeting and stopped in the doorway. What is that? Sunday gravy, from Nana Clara's book. He inhaled, and I watched his face shift. Pleasure, then something else. Worry? Mom makes this every Sunday, he said. I know. I thought it could be our Sunday too. Not instead of hers, just also ours. He kissed me. It's perfect. Thank you. We ate at our small table, candles lit, jazz playing low. David had 3 helpings. He was happy. I was sure I had done something good. The next day, we went to Margaret's for dinner. It was a ritual by then, Sunday at 5, never later, never earlier. I wore the blue dress Margaret had once said looked appropriate. I brought a bottle of wine Robert liked. Margaret met us at the door, but she didn't step aside to let us in. She stood in the frame, arms crossed, face composed, in a way I'd come to recognize. It was her battlefield calm. David, Elena. Mom, David said, leaning in to kiss her cheek. She turned slightly, so he caught the edge of her jaw. Something smells good, David said, trying to fill the silence. Does it? Margaret stepped back. Come in, dinner's ready. The table was set, but the energy was different. Robert nodded at us, but didn't meet my eyes. Nana Clara wasn't there. Margaret mentioned she'd stayed upstairs, tired. We sat. Margaret served. The gravy was on the table, rich and dark. David, she said, I heard you had gravy yesterday. David's fork stopped halfway to his plate. What? Elena made Sunday gravy, from Mother's book. Margaret's voice was level, conversational. The neighbor's daughter saw her at the Italian market, buying neck bones. Mom, it's fine. I just wonder, Elena, why you would make that particular recipe. That specific family recipe, without asking. The room contracted. Nana Clara gave me the book. I wanted to make something David loved. I didn't mean to. You didn't mean to what? Replace me? Margaret, Robert said quietly. No, Robert, I want to understand. I want to understand why my son's wife would take my mother's recipe, my recipe, and cook it in her kitchen, as if it belonged there. It was a gift, I said. My voice was steady, though my hands had gone cold. Nana Clara gave it to me. I was trying to honor the tradition. By starting your own? By sharing it, I said. By learning it. Learning implies you don't already know everything. Mom, David said, it was just dinner. It wasn't a statement. Wasn't it? Margaret looked at him, and I saw something raw beneath her composure. Fear. You ate her gravy. You told her it was perfect. Did you tell her yours is better, David? Did you tell her that no one makes it like your mother? Mom. Because I have spent 30 years perfecting that sauce. 30 years of Sunday afternoons over a hot stove, and she has it after 3 weeks. Elena worked hard on that meal, David said. His voice was quiet, careful. She was trying to connect, to be part of the family. She is part of the family, Margaret said. She has my last name. She sits at my table. But some things aren't meant to be copied. Then why give me the book? I asked. Margaret's eyes met mine. My mother is old, she forgets things, she gives away heirlooms to strangers. I'm not a stranger, I'm David's wife. For now, Margaret said. The words landed like a slap. No one moved. Robert stared at his plate. David's hands were fists on the table, but he said nothing. I stood slowly. I think I should go. Elena, David started. I'll call a car. David, stay. Finish dinner with your family. I walked to the hall. I heard David push back his chair, but Margaret's voice stopped him. If you leave this table, David, if you walk out that door after her. I didn't hear the rest. I was already outside, breathing cold October air, the recipe book heavy in my purse, though I didn't remember putting it there. The car came. I sat in the back, staring at the streetlights, understanding for the first time that I was not being welcomed into a family. I was being allowed to stand near one, and that permission could be revoked. David came home 3 hours later. He sat on the edge of our bed in the dark. "I'm sorry," he said. "For what?" "For not saying something. I don't know what I should have done." "You should have told her that I belong," I said. "Not that I was trying, that I belong." He lay down, his back to me. "She's my mother." "I know. She's scared. She doesn't know how to share me." "I know that too, David, but I'm not the one who needs to be shared. I'm the one standing right here." He didn't answer. I listened to his breathing even out into sleep, and I held the recipe book against my chest like armor. That night, after David fell asleep, I sat at our kitchen table with the recipe book open to the Sunday gravy page. The instructions were detailed, loving. Stir clockwise, it said. Never counterclockwise. The sauce gets confused. I smiled despite everything. Then I noticed something. In the margin, in a different handwriting, tighter, more angular than Nana Clara's elegant script, someone had written, "He likes it thicker, add paste, but don't tell her, she thinks hers is perfect." I stared at the note. It was Margaret's handwriting. I knew it from the birthday cards she sent David, the ones that said "Love Mom" in that same precise slant. She had once tried to improve her mother's recipe. She had once been the daughter-in-law, or the daughter, sneaking notes in margins. She had once loved enough to want to make something her own. I touched the pencil marks, faded but clear. For a moment, I almost understood her. Then I remembered the way she'd looked at me and said, "For now," and the understanding curdled into something sadder. I closed the book and went to bed. David was awake, watching me. "Did you find something?" he asked. "Your mother's handwriting, in the margin." He was quiet for a long time. "She used to cook with Nana Clara, every Sunday. Then Nana Clara gave her the book, and Mom started cooking alone. She said Nana Clara's way was old-fashioned. She wanted to modernize it. And now? Now she thinks her way is the only way." He reached for me in the dark. "I'm sorry, Elena. I'm so sorry." "I know," I said. "But sorry doesn't build the bridge, David. Only truth does." November arrived with early frost and Margaret's annual Christmas planning. She called David on a Tuesday evening while we were making dinner. I watched his face as he listened, watched the way he said, "Yes, Mom," and "I understand, Mom," and "We'll figure it out, Mom." When he hung up, he looked exhausted. "She wants us there Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. All day. Both days." "My parents are expecting us Christmas morning," I said. "Dad's health isn't good. They want to see us." "I know." I told her we'd split it. Christmas Eve with them, morning with your parents, then back for Christmas dinner. "And?" She said Christmas is one day, not a shuttle service. I stirred the soup. "What did you say?" "I said I'd talk to you." "David." I turned off the burner. "What do you want?" He sat at the kitchen island, head in his hands. "I want everyone to be happy." "Is that so wrong?" "It's not wrong. It's just impossible. She's already bought my stocking stuffers. She has the menu planned. The cousins are coming from Pittsburgh. If we leave Christmas morning, then she'll be disappointed. I know. But my father is 72 and his heart is failing, and he wants to see his daughter on Christmas. Should he be disappointed instead? Of course not." "Then what?" He looked up at me, and I saw a man drowning in the shallow end of a pool. "I don't know how to say no to her. I've never said no to her." "Then maybe it's time to learn." Christmas Eve was tense, but manageable. We arrived at Margaret's at 6, bearing gifts and the wine Robert liked. Margaret greeted David with tears in her eyes. Tears of relief, she said, that he had come home. She greeted me with a glance at the clock. "You're late." "Traffic," I said. Of course. Dinner was elaborate. 12 fishes, Italian tradition. The table was crowded with cousins, aunts, the noise of a large family. I sat between David and a cousin I barely knew. Across from us, Margaret watched every bite David took, every laugh he shared. She didn't watch me at all. At 10, David's cousin Anthony asked about our plans for the morning. We're heading to Elena's parents for brunch, David said. The table went quiet. Margaret set down her wine glass. Brunch? Just for a few hours. We'll be back by 4 for dinner. You're leaving. On Christmas morning. Dad wants to see Elena, I said. He's not well. This might be. It's important. And my dinner isn't important? Mom, no one said that. You did. By leaving. By choosing. Margaret's voice was rising. Every holiday, David. Every single one. You find a reason to cut it short. Thanksgiving you left early. Easter you had plans. And now Christmas. My Christmas. Margaret, Robert said. Not at the table. Then when, Robert? When do we discuss the fact that our son is being pulled away from us piece by piece? I'm not being pulled, David said. I'm trying to honor both families. Both families, Margaret repeated. As if they're equal. As if 25 years of Christmases in this house equals a few hours with people who didn't raise you, didn't sacrifice for you, didn't. That's enough, I said. The words came out quietly, but they stopped her. Everyone was staring. I have never asked David to abandon you, I said. I have never asked him to miss a dinner, skip a birthday, or forget where he came from. I have sat in that corner chair. I have eaten your food. I have smiled when you insulted my cooking, my job, my presence in your son's life. But my father is dying, and if David wants to spend Christmas morning with him, that is not a betrayal. That is a man being a good husband. And if you can't see that, then the problem isn't me. It's your inability to let your son be one. I stood. My hands were shaking, but my voice was steady. David, I'll be in the car. Take whatever time you need. I walked out. The cold air hit my face like a benediction. I sat in our car, engine off, and waited. David came out 20 minutes later. His eyes were red. Let's go, he said. To my parents? To our home? I told them we'd see them tomorrow for dinner. I told Mom that Christmas morning is ours to decide. And? She didn't speak to me after that. Dad walked me to the door. He said he was sorry. We drove home in silence. I wanted to comfort him, but I didn't know how. His pain was a country I couldn't enter without a visa from his mother. That night, while David showered, I opened Nana Clara's recipe book. I wasn't looking for anything specific. I just needed the smell of tomato and basil to remind me that love could be simple. A note fell from between the pages. Small, yellowed, folded twice. In shaky handwriting, it read, "For the one who tends the fire, Margaret was not always this afraid. When she was young, she loved a man her mother did not choose. She fought for him, she won, but she has forgotten what it cost and what it taught her. Do not hate her, pity her, and do not let her fear become your prison. Add your own recipes. That is how you become family. See." I read it 3 times. Then I opened to a blank page at the back of the book and wrote, in my own handwriting, Elena's pancakes, for David, Saturday mornings. I closed the book. In the bathroom, the water stopped. I got into bed, and when David emerged, steam rising from his shoulders, I held out my arms. "I'm sorry," he whispered into my hair. "For what?" "For not being stronger. For making you fight alone. You're learning," I said. "That's all any of us can do." But as I held him, I felt the distance between us. A small space, barely a crack, but widening, and I knew that Margaret felt it too. She was pushing against that crack with both hands, trying to force it open wide enough to pull her son back through. I read Nana Clara's note again, by the light of our bedside lamp. Margaret was not always this afraid. I thought of the woman I'd met 2 years ago, the one who had hugged me at the wedding with genuine warmth, who had told David he was lucky. Where had that woman gone? Had she ever existed, or had she simply been performing the role of welcoming mother until she realized the performance might become permanent? "David," I whispered. He was almost asleep. What man did your mother love? The one her mother didn't choose?" He rolled over, blinking. "What?" Nana Clara's note. It says, "Your mother fought for someone once." Oh, he was quiet for a moment. Dad, my grandmother didn't like Dad. She thought he was too quiet, not ambitious enough. Mom threatened to elope. She was 22. She chose him over her mother's approval. And now? Now I think she's forgotten what it felt like, to be young and in love and terrified that your family would take it away. He looked at me, his eyes dark in the dim light. She thinks she's protecting me, but she's protecting herself from becoming the mother she once feared. And what about you? What are you protecting? He didn't answer, but he held me tighter, and in that silence, I heard the truth he wasn't ready to speak. January and February passed in a series of small withdrawals. Margaret didn't call me, she called David. 3, 4 times a day. Updates about the neighbor's dog, questions about his sleep, reminders of upcoming family events that, she noted, Elena probably won't want to attend, but you should. David answered every call. He listened, he placated, he promised to visit alone, without me, because Elena has her own things, a phrase that started as an explanation and became an excuse. Why don't you ever defend me? I asked one night in March. We were washing dishes, the kitchen warm with soap and steam. I do defend you, he said. You don't hear it. What do you say? I say you're busy. I say you mean well. I say, busy, mean well. I set down a plate. Those aren't defenses, David. They're dismissals. He shut off the water. What do you want me to say? Mom, stop calling. Mom, leave us alone. She's my mother. She's alone in that house all day. Dad plays golf. Her friends moved to Florida. I'm all she has. You're all she allows herself to have. There's a difference. He dried his hands, not looking at me. I can't just cut her off. I've never asked you to. But you want me to choose. You both want me to choose. I turned him to face me. His eyes were tired, the skin beneath them bruised with sleeplessness. Listen to me carefully, I said. I will never ask you to choose between me and your family. Never. I am asking you to choose between peace and conflict, between honesty and avoidance, between being a son who enables his mother's fear and being a man who protects his marriage. Protects it from what? From erosion, from the slow poison of resentment. David, every time you let her speak about me that way, and you say nothing, you tell her it's acceptable, and you tell me I don't matter enough to defend. He pulled away. You don't understand what it's like. Growing up, she was everything. Dad worked 60 hours a week. She was at every game, every recital, every parent conference. She gave up her career for us. How do I repay that? By telling her she's wrong. You repay it by becoming someone she can respect, not someone she controls. He sat at the table, head in his hands. I sat across from him, the recipe book between us. I had started adding to it. Recipes from my mother, adaptations of Nana Clara's classics. It was becoming a bridge, but I didn't know if anyone would walk across it. She said something last week, David said quietly. She said if I really loved her, I wouldn't let you keep me from Sunday dinner. And what did you say? I said I'd try to make it. David, I know. He looked up, and his eyes were wet. But when she's crying, Elena, when she's saying I'm all she has, I forget what I'm supposed to be. I just want it to stop. So you give her what she wants? Yes. And what do I get? He was silent. You get my patience, I said, my silence, my dignity. But David, patience is not infinite, and I'm starting to wonder if my dignity is costing me my marriage. Don't say that. Then show me, not with grand gestures, with small ones. Tell her we have plans when we have plans. Tell her I belong at the table. Tell her that loving her doesn't mean obeying her. He reached across and touched the recipe book. She hates that you have this. I know. She says you've corrupted it. I've added to it. That's different. Is it? He opened to a page. My mother's pancake recipe. written in blue ink, next to Nana Clara's Sunday gravy in faded black. 2 traditions, 1 book. That's the point, I said. Family isn't a single recipe. It's a cookbook. It grows, it changes. Otherwise, it dies. He stared at the page for a long time. Then he closed the book and looked at me. I love you, he said. I love you more than I know how to say, and I'm failing you. I know I am. But I don't know how to stop failing both of you without destroying one of you. You're not going to destroy anyone, but you have to decide what kind of man you want to be. The one who pleases everyone and loses himself, or the one who loses some peace and keeps his soul. He didn't answer, but he held my hand until we went to bed, and that night, for the first time in months, he didn't answer when Margaret called at 10 o'clock. The phone rang 4 times, then silence. In the dark, I felt him trembling, but he didn't reach for the phone, and in that small, stubborn act, I saw the man he was trying to become. The following Saturday, David met his father for lunch at the diner they'd frequented since David was a boy. Robert ordered the meatloaf. David ordered coffee he didn't drink. "Your mother is wrong," Robert said. David looked up, surprised. "Dad?" "She's wrong about Elena. She's wrong about the ultimatums. She's been wrong for 2 years, and I've let her be wrong because it was easier than arguing." "Why are you telling me this now?" "Because I'm tired, David. I'm 71 years old, and I'm tired of watching my wife bully my son, and I'm tired of being a coward." Robert stirred his coffee, not looking up. "When I married your mother, my mother hated her. Called her ambitious, called her modern. Your mother cried every night for a year, and I said nothing. I thought if I kept the peace, everyone would adjust. They didn't. My mother died believing I'd made a mistake, and your mother has spent 40 years proving her wrong, so hard that she's become what she feared. What should I have done? Not what I did. Don't be neutral, David. Neutrality isn't peace. It's surrender, and it surrenders the wrong things." David came home from that lunch changed. Not dramatically, not all at once. But he carried himself differently, as if he'd been given permission to feel something he'd suppressed. "Dad says Mom's afraid," he told me that evening. "Afraid of being alone, afraid of not mattering. He says her love has become a demand because she doesn't know how to offer it any other way." Do you believe him? I believe she's suffering, but I believe I'm suffering too. And for the first time, I think my suffering matters as much as hers. I kissed him then, long and slow, feeling the shift in him like a tide turning. The next morning, Margaret called at 8, her usual Sunday check-in. David answered, but he didn't agree to come to dinner. He said we had plans. He said it gently, but he said it. "What plans?" I heard her ask through the phone, her voice sharp. "We're going to the museum," David said. "There's a photography exhibit Elena wants to see. Then we're having dinner with friends. Our friends. And next Sunday? We'll see, Mom. I'll call you during the week." He hung up. His hand was shaking, but his voice had been steady. "How do you feel?" I asked. "Like I'm falling," he said. "But for the first time, I think there might be something solid at the bottom." I took his hand. "There is, I promise." Part 5. The Choice. The dinner happened on a Sunday in late April. The roast lamb was Margaret's specialty, the same recipe her mother had made for Easter, for anniversaries, for the Sunday when David had announced his engagement. It was a recipe meant for celebration. That night, it tasted like goodbye. We almost didn't go. David had spent the week in a tense standoff with his mother, returning her calls with text messages, declining her offer to stop by with soup because, as he said, "We have our own soup." I watched him grow thinner, quieter. He was choosing in small ways, and each choice cost him something visible. "Maybe we should skip this week," I said as he buttoned his shirt that afternoon. "We can't skip forever, and if we go, maybe she's ready to accept things as they are." David. Maybe, he repeated, but he didn't sound convinced. We arrived at 5. The house was heavy with the smell of rosemary and garlic. Robert greeted us at the door with a look I couldn't read. Resignation, perhaps, or warning. She's been cooking since noon, he whispered to David. Be gentle. I've been gentle for 30 years, Dad. I know, that's the problem. Margaret was in the kitchen, wearing her good apron, the one with the embroidered flowers. She didn't turn when we entered. David, set the table, please. The good silver. Elena, you can sit. You don't know where things go. I know where the plates are, I said. I've set this table dozens of times. Then sit anyway. The tension was a fourth presence at dinner, more hungry than any of us. Robert carved the lamb with mechanical precision. Margaret served potatoes that no one had asked for. David sat between his father and me, his hands flat on the table, as if bracing for impact. How's work? Robert asked. Fine, David said. And the apartment? The neighbors still loud? Sometimes. Elena, your mother? Good, Robert. Thank you for asking. Margaret set down the serving spoon. It clattered against the china. David, I'm going to ask this once, and I expect an answer. Mom, please, not here, not now. Yes, here, now. At this table, where your family has gathered every Sunday for 30 years. Where else would we ask? Margaret, the roast is getting cold. Let it get cold, Robert. Some things matter more than meat. Elena, you don't have to stay for this. I'm exactly where I need to be, Robert. Thank you. See, even she knows this concerns all of us. This is a family conversation. I am family. You're his wife. That's a choice. We're blood. That's a fact. Mom? No, I've held my tongue for 3 years. 3 years of watching my son vanish. Sunday dinners? Twice in 12 months. Your nephew's baptism? You left before the cake. Last Thanksgiving. We were there, Mom. We stayed 2 hours. Until she looked at her watch. One little glance, and suddenly my son remembers he has obligations elsewhere. That's not... Elena, never. Then what happened, David? Because from where I sit, I don't recognize the man at this table. The boy I raised honored his word. The boy I raised knew that family isn't convenience, it's covenant. Maybe the boy you raised got tired of breaking promises to the woman he loves. So now we're the villains? We who fed you, clothed you, sat with you through every fever and every failure? Nobody's calling you villains. Then what are we? Because she certainly doesn't treat us like family. She doesn't call. She doesn't ask my advice. She changes the recipes. The recipes? Mom, really? Don't mock me. Food is tradition. Tradition is memory. And she's slowly erasing every memory we have. I'm building new ones. With her. That's what marriage is. Marriage should expand family, not replace it. It doesn't have to replace you. You're the one making it either or. Because it is either or, you've proven that. Every choice you make, you choose her. Her parents' Christmas, her friends' parties. Her quiet little life where we don't fit. That's not fair. Life isn't fair, David. Love isn't fair. It sacrifices. It stays. It chooses blood over preference. Clara, say something. You've been quiet all night. I turned. Nana Clara stood in the doorway to the kitchen, leaning on her cane. I hadn't heard her come downstairs. She wore a gray cardigan over her nightgown, her white hair loose around her shoulders. I've been listening, Margaret. It's something more people should try. Don't be cryptic. This concerns your grandson. It concerns all of us, which is why I'm wondering when we stopped wanting his happiness and started wanting his allegiance. His happiness is with his family. His happiness is at this table, Margaret. It always was. Until we made it conditional. Mom? No, David, listen to your grandmother. She understands. She always has. I understand that love without freedom becomes custody, Margaret. and I didn't raise my daughter to hold her children in cages. How dare you? I dare because I'm old enough to see the end of things, and I don't want my grandson's marriage to be one of them. David, look at me. Ignore them. Look at your mother. I'm asking you, who do you choose, us or her? The room held its breath. I looked at David. His face was pale, his hands shaking. I saw the boy he had been, desperate to please. I saw the man he was becoming, terrified of the cost. And I saw, in the set of his jaw, something new, a stubbornness, a spine. He stood slowly. He didn't look at me. He looked at his mother. Answer me, Margaret whispered. I choose Elena. Margaret's face crumpled. David, I choose my wife, because she never made me choose. The silence that followed was the truest sound I had ever heard. It was the sound of a breaking and a beginning. David reached for my hand. His palm was sweating, but his grip was firm. We're going to go now, he said quietly. I love you, Mom. I love you, Dad. Nana Clara, thank you. But I can't be here anymore. Not like this. He led me to the door. Robert stood, his chair scraping against the floor. David. Dad. I'm sorry. For all of it. I know. Me too. We walked out into the spring evening. The air smelled of lilacs and rain. David didn't speak until we were in the car. Then he rested his forehead on the steering wheel and sobbed. I held him. I didn't say it would be okay. I didn't know if it would be okay. I just held him while he cried for his mother, for himself, for every Sunday dinner he would never have again in the same way. When he finished, he started the car. We drove home through streets that looked exactly the same, but felt completely different. He didn't let go of my hand until we were inside our apartment. He sat on the couch. I made tea we didn't drink. The recipe book sat on the coffee table between us, its leather cover worn soft by generations of hands. Did I do the right thing? He asked. You did the honest thing, I said. The right thing will take time to know. He opened the book to the page where my pancake recipe sat beside Nana Clara's gravy. He touched the two scripts, the old and the new. I didn't choose you over them, he said. I hope you know that. I chose the only thing I could live with. I know, I said, and I did. In the car, I watched David's profile in the streetlight. His jaw was set, his eyes dry now but distant. I wanted to say something profound, something that would seal this moment as victory. But it wasn't a victory, it was a surrender. He had surrendered the idea that he could be both son and husband without cost, and he had chosen the cost he could bear. Your mother will call tomorrow, I said. I know. She'll cry. She'll say you broke her heart. I know that too. And you'll want to go back, to fix it, to make the pain stop. He glanced at me, surprised. How do you know? Because that's who you are, David. You fix things. You soothe. You carry everyone's pain until your back breaks. I reached for his hand. But tonight, you chose to set some of it down, and I need you to know that doesn't make you cruel. It makes you free. He squeezed my fingers. I don't feel free. I feel like I lost something. You did. You lost the illusion that love means never saying no, but you kept yourself, and you kept us. He nodded slowly, staring at the road. Nana Clara knew. All along, she knew this would happen. She's seen it before, generations of women trying to hold on too tight. She didn't want you to be another casualty. And my father? Your father is learning too, just later than he should have. We pulled into our parking space. David sat for a moment, engine off, hands still gripping the wheel. Elena? Yes? Would you have made me choose? If she'd been kinder to you, if she'd welcomed you, would you ever have asked me to pick? I thought of all the Sundays, all the slights, all the moments I'd swallowed my pride to keep his peace. And I thought of the woman I'd promised to be when I married him. Not perfect, not vengeful, just honest. No, I said, I would have asked you to be present, to be faithful, to build a life with me that included your family but didn't orbit it, but I would never have made you choose. Because love that demands exclusion isn't love. It's a transaction. And I didn't marry you for transactions. He leaned across the console and kissed me. It was not a passionate kiss. It was a grateful one. And in gratitude, I realized we were finally finding our way back to each other. Part 6. What we choose to keep. May arrived soft and green, and with it, a silence from Margaret that felt like both punishment and relief. David didn't call her. She didn't call him. Robert sent a brief text every few days, weather reports, golf scores, the occasional thinking of you. Nana Clara called once a week, always on Sunday mornings, always brief. Are you eating? She'd ask. Are you talking? Good. Keep doing both. David grieved. I hadn't expected that, though I should have. He grieved not the loss of his family. They were still alive, still nearby, but the loss of the idea he'd carried his whole life. The idea that if he was good enough, accommodating enough, present enough, he could keep everyone happy. He had built his identity on that premise, and now it was gone. He came home from work one Friday, in late May, and found me at the stove, making Sunday gravy from Nana Clara's book. The smell filled our small kitchen. I thought I'd make our own Sunday dinner, I said. Just us, and whoever wants to come. No obligations, just an open door. He leaned against the counter, watching me stir. Do you think they'll ever come? Robert will. Nana Clara will. Your mother, I hesitated. I don't know, but the door has to be open anyway. That's what makes it real. He nodded slowly. I keep waiting to feel guilty. For leaving that night. For choosing. And? Sometimes I do, but mostly I feel like I can breathe. That Sunday, we set the table for 4, just in case. We ate at 5, the same time Margaret always had. Not to compete, but to honor the rhythm we'd both grown up with. Robert arrived at 5:30, holding a bottle of wine and a loaf of bread from the bakery Margaret preferred. Your mother doesn't know I'm here, he said. She will eventually, David said. Yes, and eventually she'll have to decide what matters more, her pride or her son. Robert sat, looked at the table, at the gravy, at the recipe book open on the counter. This is nice, David. This is very nice. Nana Clara came the following week, carried up our stairs by David, because the elevator was broken. She sat in our best chair, ate 2 helpings of gravy, and pronounced it almost as good as mine, which means better than Margaret's, but don't tell her I said so. I won't, I promised. She'll come around, Nana Clara said, patting my hand. Not quickly, not easily. Margaret has never admitted defeat gracefully, but she loves him, and love, real love, eventually learns to bend. And if it doesn't? Then you have this. She tapped the recipe book. And you have each other. And you have the family you choose to build. That's not a consolation prize, Elena. That's the whole point. She left us with a kiss for David and a whispered, be patient, for me. I didn't know if I had patience left. But I had the book, and I had David, who was learning, slowly, to be the man he'd promised to be. June brought a letter from Margaret. It arrived on a Tuesday, in a cream envelope with her precise handwriting. David opened it at the kitchen table, read it twice, then handed it to me. It was 2 pages. The first was an accounting of her sacrifices, her fears, her conviction that I had stolen her son. The second was shorter. It said, I don't know how to be his mother if I can't be first, but I don't know how to not be his mother. I'm trying to learn. Please be patient with an old woman who is more afraid than she is cruel. I read it 3 times. Then I folded it and placed it inside the recipe book, between Nana Clara's Sunday gravy and my mother's pancakes. Will you answer? I asked David. Yes, he said. But not yet. She needs to sit with what she wrote, and I need to sit with what I said. We both need to know it's real. He was right. Healing isn't a single conversation. It's a series of small choices, made daily, to trust again. July came. We continued our Sunday dinners. Sometimes Robert came, sometimes Nana Clara. Margaret did not. But she sent a cake for David's birthday, his favorite, chocolate with raspberry filling, the same cake she'd made every year. It arrived with a note that said only, "For David, from Mom." He cried when he saw it. Not the wrenching sobs of April, but quiet tears of a man who understood that forgiveness was beginning, not ending. That night, after Robert and Nana Clara had gone home, David and I sat on our small balcony, watching the city settle into dusk. The recipe book was on the table between us, open to a new page. David was writing in it, his first recipe, he said, though he barely cooked. It was for emergency tea, something he'd invented during the worst weeks of the conflict. Boil water, add honey, wait, breathe. "I want to add something," he said, finishing. "What?" "A note. For whoever gets this book next." He wrote, in his neat, careful script, "Family is not the place where you are never asked to leave. It is the place where, if you must leave to become yourself, you are always allowed to return, but only if you return as yourself. Not as who they need you to be." I read it and wept. Not from sadness, but from the relief of being seen, of being chosen not as an alternative to his blood, but as the partner who helped him understand what blood should mean. In August, Margaret came to dinner. She arrived at 5:15, wearing the blue dress she reserved for church. She brought flowers, not the expensive kind, but daisies from her garden. She hugged David with one arm, stiff and brief. She nodded at me, and after a pause that lasted a heartbeat too long, she said, "Elena, you look well." "Thank you, Margaret. So do you." We ate at the small table. The conversation was careful, navigating around sharp edges. But Margaret ate my gravy. She didn't praise it, but she ate 2 helpings, and when she left, she paused at the door. "David," she said. "Sunday? If you want to come," he said, "you're always welcome, both of you." She looked at me then, really looked at me, and I saw the cost of her pride. It was etched in the lines around her mouth, the hesitation in her hands. But I also saw something else. A crack, a willingness. "I'll bring the cake," she said, "next time, if that's acceptable." "It's acceptable," I said, "and Margaret, thank you for coming." She nodded, once, and left. David closed the door and leaned against it, eyes closed. "One dinner," he said, "one cake. It doesn't fix anything." "No," I agreed, "but it's a start, and starts are all we ever really have." Later, after David had fallen asleep, I opened the recipe book to the last blank page. I wrote one final recipe, not for food but for survival. For the nights when you must choose, remember that love is not a ledger. You do not subtract from one side to add to the other. You simply decide what kind of person you want to be, and then you become that person, even when it breaks your heart. Especially then. I closed the book and set it on the shelf, next to our wedding photo. Outside, the city hummed with life. Messy, complicated, beautiful life. And inside, my husband slept peacefully, his hand resting on my side of the bed, waiting. I lay down beside him, knowing that some recipes are never finished. They are simply passed on, altered by each new cook, made richer by every scar and every hope. We were not a perfect family, we were a chosen one, and that, I had learned, was enough.